Hello everyone, in today's video we'll be going over the data exfiltration using the curl and Python, and for our environment I choose to go with Labyrinth Linguist Hack the Box challenge, which is recently retired that I managed to solve this week. And I find it really interesting because we got a command execution using the server-side template injection, and I'm going to show you source code just in a second to explain everything, but we are kind of limited what we can do, and we are limited with seeing the output of our commands. So I want to showcase how dangerous can be having the curl command and what can we do combining the curl and Python to exfiltrate the data, even though we are limited with kind of commands that we can execute and the output of the command. So it'll be much easier to you to understand and follow once when I start a challenge and show you the source code. So let's get started without further ado. So let's start the instance, and while the instance is starting we can go to the source code. I downloaded it from the Hack the Box. It's available for us. So this is going to be a Java Spring Boot application, really simple, really small application. So let's start from the very beginning. So we have a challenge, we have our POM XML file, and this is with the dependencies that we have with our application. We define the Spring Boot Maven plugins, Spring Boot Web dependencies, and what really caught my eye looking at this POM XML the first time is this implementation of the velocity. And velocity is just a template for the Java applications, right? So if we go ahead and move further, we see the flag. This is just a test flag. Entry point is this is really interesting as well, because we have to understand where our flag is and how it looks like. So this won't be the challenge where we have to obtain flag.txt in a normal way. The flag.txt upon the starting of the server, or if we are running this locally with a Docker container, is actually being renamed with some custom extension. So we have to have some kind of a command execution so we can enumerate the system and exfiltrate the flag. It won't be just that easy. Moving on, we have the source main code for a Java application. As I mentioned, it's really simple. It has only one request mapping, request controller for a root directory. We also see the resources. We have statics, some CSS and fonts, and templates is only one. So the idea here of the application is it's really simple. There is input field for us to user supply data. Once we supply the data, whatever we supply is actually going to be translated to this ancient language. It's really interesting application, so nothing much really going on. There is a couple of functions here, but and also here you can see also here the velocity is being used. So whenever I see some kind of templates being used, first thing that comes to my mind is server-side template injection. But also in this video is not purpose only solving the challenge. It is also going to be about talking to data exfiltration with Python and curl, and the interesting approach that I found working for this one. So let's get started. Hopefully the instance is spawned. Let's refresh the page. Yes, nice. So I also started a burp, so we can go ahead and add this to the scope so we don't have to proxy unnecessary traffic. Nice. And then let's start the Foxy proxy and see if the application loads just fine. Yes. So if, for example, if I say here test, we see that it's actually going to be translated to this ancient language. If I inspect the page, we can see that indeed it's test. Right here we can do anything. Honestly, it can be hello. So what is really interesting about this one is that I was dealing with server-side injection before, but I never had a chance to do this with velocity, and I didn't find much resource about online, so that's another reason why I'm making this video. So I found this really interesting. I also have this kind of notes for when I was solving the challenge yesterday, so it's going to be like, so you guys don't have to watch me type all these little longer commands and waste time, so keep this video short. So this is the way, so if I show you the request being made to the application, there is a post requests. Within the post request body, there is one parameter text, and then it's actually going to be in transmitter, right? So we send this to repeater and supply this payload. This payload is actually, as you can see here, this is old comment. We can delete this one. So this payload is actually, we're dealing with a simple server-side template injection where we expect the response of this command to be, where we expect the output of this command to be returned to us in response. But indeed, that's not going to happen, because if we supply this to the text and just leave it as is, we can see here that we are just getting some processes here, and I try multiple payloads. This is the only one who gave me something different other than translating the text like with normal input or getting this some kind of 500 internal error. So I see there is a process started with PID 59, and which means that whoami is being executed, right? But I don't see the output, so we're kind of limited here. This is when things are getting interesting, how we can use curl to exfiltrate the data. So my next step was, okay, what if I can go ahead and use curl to go ahead and exfiltrate the content of the Etsy password to the collaborator URL. And the collaborator is just a server in a burp suite in a pro edition, but you can use only you can use any kind of a server. You can use webhook that site, you can use ngrok, whatever works for you. Since I have a collaborator, I found it easiest to use. So let's go ahead, and what we want to do is to use curl x, which is defining the method of our request, which is a post. And now the data is at Etsy password and the destination file. So let's go ahead and type it out. So for this one, we are leveraging the curl command. So if I only execute a curl to see if it's present on the system, because it might not be installed, we can send it and we see another process started, which means this is positive. If I, for example, try to execute wget, we are going to see an error. This is actually going to be exception of the Java runtime, which is saying that I cannot run the program wget because there is no such file directory at home. So which means that this program does not currently exist. You can try NSLOOKUP. I'll try all other ways of data exfiltration using NSLOOKUP and wget. Didn't really work for me, so I have to stick with the curl. So you can see here, when you execute the curl, new process started and everything is fine. So the idea with the curl is, okay, let's go ahead and define the method of our request, which is a post. And then we want to go ahead, if I want to execute, okay, so this is a D for data, and then Etsy password. And now destination of our request is actually going to be our collaborator. But once again, you can use any kind of server for this one. So the idea here, what this command does is actually leveraging curl command. You specify the request type, which is a post, data is Etsy password, and now we're sending this one. The biggest thing for me that I learned during this challenge is this at Etsy password, that we can do the transferring of files. Many resources and many blog posts are using this as a, for example, file and then defining a file. That didn't really work for me. They sometimes use the -f. That didn't really work for me as well. So I found this option to just specify Etsy password, and hopefully this will work. So let's go ahead and send this one. We see a process start, which is always a good sign. Pull from the collaborator, and we see there is a request, and we did see Etsy password file being exfiltrated. Now there is another quirk for this problem, is that if you remember at the very beginning of the video, the flag is not going to be just flag.txt. The flag is actually being randomized. As we can see here, there is a script for that in the source code. Not the build docker, but entry point.sh. So we see it's going to be really hard for us to exfiltrate the flag.txt, which is actually having some random numbers, and just not only numbers but the strings as well. So we have to somehow enumerate the system. So I was really thinking about this one, how we can approach it, since we don't see the output of our commands in the response. So I got the idea to go ahead and create a kind of a Python script, which is actually going to invoke some system commands, move around the system, for example, move to the home directory, execute lsla, and give us everything in the response, leveraging the subprocess of a curl, and send us everything to our server, in this case, burp's collaborator. So in my mini map that we have here, this is what I did. So this is the steps, because 1 and 1.1 is the steps that we completed so far. So we know that we can leverage curl to exfiltrate data. The next thing is using the local Python server plus ngrok plus curl, we can transfer Python script to the remote server. So the idea here is that I want to create a Python script, then use the curl to transfer to remote server, execute it there. So how I got the idea about the Python script? Why Python script, you might wonder. And the solution is actually, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. I was just running around the system and just seeing what tools I can use. I was thinking maybe we can go ahead and transfer the NC, some kind of the script netcat or some kind of like that. So if you execute like the netcat, I think we are getting the error. If you see ns error still, if you try bash works. So I didn't try with that one, but I just figured out it might work as well. But when I tried Python 3, it did work out. So I got the idea, okay, I can use Python because I was writing some scripts earlier about it, and definitely we can use Python to enumerate the system. You can also try, for example, Python 3 and then pass the version. I think this will also work. This one doesn't work. Maybe the space is breaking it. No, but Python 3 version works just fine. Actually, Python 3 command, so we know the Python is being installed. I think the Python as well might be installed. No, just the Python 3. or I break, okay, I see. Here, I break the syntax, Python 3, Python. So Python 3 is the only thing that's installed. Python 2 is not installed on the machine, but never mind. So the next step is to create a Python script really quick, then start a local server using, again, Python, and then expose the local server using the ngrok, which is actually making available for anyone. And then we're going to make the curl request to transfer this file to remote system, which is in this case this remote server, and then enumerate the system that way. It's a really interesting approach. Let's get started. So okay, let's see. I have my Python script written out. So we are importing the subroutes and the OS. This is the location of our collaborator server. So if I go a couple requests back, okay, we can just go ahead and copy the new one. So this is actually going to be URL, which is where we expect our request to respond. We're expecting to receive the request. So what we're doing, I have this print statements and some exceptions here, and I was testing this locally to work. So you don't need that if you don't want to. So we are moving to the etc password as a child directory, and then we are trying to go ahead and execute lsla. We can go ahead and see what's in there. You don't have to move to etc password, you can just move to the etc, right, and see what's there. It's just an example I was trying to. And then we can go ahead and, using the curl command, we are leveraging curl, which is actually, we know that it's installed on the system. And then we can send, again, the post with the data, and then we are sending this to our URL variable that we create earlier. So it's really interesting. In order to solve the challenge, we have just to go ahead and move to the home directory, because once again, running back to the source code, we see that flag is actually being stored in the home directory. So we can go ahead and, without further ado, with testing this one, because I know it works, I tested it out, we can go ahead and move to the one over there. So it's actually the same one, I'm just switching the child directory here. So let's go ahead and give it a try with this one. So I'm going to copy this one, create a Python script in my terminal, and then let's go ahead and call it exploit.py, even though it's not really an exploit, but that's fine. And then what we want to do is actually start a Python server. In a new window, we can open a new window and give it go ahead and start the ngrok. Let me just see what port I start. Let's start this one on 8001 because of prep. So now we have this ngrok server running. Let's go ahead and copy the URL. And what this does is actually just exposing our local server to the internet, which is really handy to have in your toolkit. Really fast and really convenient. So we have our Python script running, we have Python server running, being exposed to ngrok. Let's go ahead and make a curl request to our machine to get this exploit.py transferred to the web server. So we're going to leverage server-side template injection that we found earlier for that one. So let's go ahead and delete this whoami command, as it's not really helpful at the moment. And let's go ahead and make a curl request to our HTTP for the ngrok. Oops, we don't need this one. We already copied it for the ngrok UI. And then we want to go ahead and obtain this exploit.py, and then let's go ahead and -o is actually how it's actually going to be stored in a remote system. So exploit, let's go ahead and call it the same. So let's execute the command. We see here is fine. For our confirmation, we want to go ahead and see that there is a 200 OK response from our from our server. We can also try the ngrok, and we see also 200 OK for the exploit.py, which means that now our Python script that we created earlier for enumerating the system, enumerating the content of the home directory is actually going to be transferred. Is actually going to be is actually transferred to the remote host, and now we can go ahead and execute and go ahead and enumerate the request received in our collaborator. So for that one, we can delete this curl command, and we want to leverage Python 3, and we know it's actually going to be exploit.py. Yes, there is no typo. Let's run it. The process started, which is nice. Let's go ahead and pull the requests. And yes, we see the content of the home directory, and we got this flag. Now, of course, your flag number will be different. So It's just or part of the randomization that we see in the code, but we see the content of the flag directory, of the home directory, pardon me, and now we can go ahead and exfiltrate the flag. So let's go ahead and do that. Copy the content of this one, and then we can use the curl command the same way we use with the etsy password. So let's go ahead, curl. We are defining the post. The type of the request is actually going to be post. The data will be, in this case, at and the home directory of the flag. And then finally, we want to go ahead and take this location of the URL of the collaborator. And hopefully this should work. Let's give it a try. Process started. And the request received. And here is our flag. So this is the approach that I took. Probably I was overthinking a little bit. I didn't check if any other videos or solutions forums exist about this challenge. So, but it's also really nice way to go ahead and for myself to practice data exfiltration using some Python scripts and curl. I find it really interesting, especially about I didn't know about this @ sign that you can exfiltrate the files this way, because other ways, as mentioned, file and then -f comments or flags didn't work for me. So this is the solution of this challenge, and also really nice approach for data exfiltration. If you are limited with seeing the output of the commands, for example, here we are not dealing with a classic SSTI where we see, for example, if we exit who am I, we don't see that in response. And also we are kind of limited what's installed on the machine. So I found this really interesting challenge, and combining kind of curl SSTI but kind of blind SSTI if you prefer it that way. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.